Well, that is certainly a question that we will attempt to answer today. Guys, we are back with another What's News episode, and today we're going to be focusing in on two IPs, Inside Out 2, and of course, Series 1 or Series 14 of Doctor Who, depending on how you look at it. Also, maybe 60. I don't know. We have a lot of fun. Can't wait to get into this one, guys. Hey, and if you're watching this live on our YouTube or on Facebook, go ahead and shout out where you're listening from, and we'll throw it up on the screen. And if you're catching up and just do it later, we'll still acknowledge you, right? Yeah. So, hey, also we want to thank one of our supporters. You can support our show on Patreon, Capfee, or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate everyone who supports this show. But today we want to do a special shout out for Trip Fuller. We love you. You're awesome. Thank you for supporting the show. And with that, I'm Joshua Noel, and I'm joined by a bunch of hosts today. This is technically a double issue. We got 5 or more hosts. This is a double issue. I love this. It's so much fun to get people together to talk about Doctor Who and then force them to hear me rant about Disney as well. So I'm Joshua Noel. What I've been geeking out on, weird one, very weird one. But my TV showed Die Hard, and I was like, oh, I don't like Die Hard. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's Kevin Hart. Oh, that's Die Hard. I was like, wait a minute. And then I watched that and the second one, and I laughed most of the way through both. I like they're not good movies, but they were hilarious. I had a great time just watching those back to back on my own, just eating some popcorn, enjoying silly comedy films that are not comedy. He's a serious action star. Christian, what have you been geeking out on?
I have a question though, Christian.
Yeah.
Did you just say you don't like Die Hard the movies?
I've never seen them that much.
Okay.
I've just never been interested.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, they don't look interesting.
The Legend and Namesake.
Wait. I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I'm thinking of Fast and Furious. I've seen Die Hard. Yeah, my bad.
Okay. Whew. All right, you're saved. Totally redeemed yourself.
I wasn't expecting that question. I wasn't prepared. Christian, what are you geeking out on?
I don't know, Joshua. You want to ask me what I'm geeking out on, or the lightning round stuff for the what's?
Oh, you're right. I'm also here with Christian Asley, Matthew Winter, Will Rose, and Reverend Justin Cole. So we have a whole team really excited for this today. We're not going to do geeking out because I don't know how to read my own outline. But guys, if you want to give us positive ratings and reviews anyway, and you're on a laptop, the thing that helps us the most is if you go to podchaser.com and leave us a rating and review there. It helps the algorithms tell other people that we're important, whether we are or not. If you're on Spotify, do the rating, leave a 5-star Apple Podcast, rate and review. And of course, if you're on YouTube, smash that like and subscribe button, because when you don't, you're really smashing Will's heart. So you have a choice. You're smashing something, either Will's heart or that subscribe button.
It's akin to not knowing the difference between Die Hard and Fast and Furious. So if you don't smash that, it is.
And we don't have any live viewers yet, so I can't shout out where you're from yet. But if you are and you say later, we'll throw it up on the screen. We appreciate you guys. And now we're going to jump into our lightning round, where we're just going to talk about some stuff that's not our main topic, but is still new that we wanted to shout out. Of course, I got to shout out The Boys. Season 4 just started. We're on episode 4. Holy crap. It is so good. They changed so much in the show from the comic, specifically to fit our current political season, and the commentary that they're making and just showing exactly how dangerous some of our political rhetoric is today. It's so good. I'm eating it up. And then even just how like twisted Homelander can be. And like that last scene of episode 4 of him in the elevator, just drenched in people's blood. And he just starts grinning. Oh, so menacing. So menacing. So good. Before I do any others, we're all just going to do one to start. Christian, what's something for the lightning round?
I watched earlier today Ultraman Rising, which is one of the new anime originals for Netflix. It's not beholden to its own continuity. Some prior continuity, I should say. And it was a ton of fun. Had a lot of good things to say about being a parent, about looking after people. What does it mean to be a hero? I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Matthew Winter, you got something for the lightning round?
Nothing new. I'm still just watching through the new Digimon.
Hey, perfectly fine. Will.
Yes, I am all into My Adventures with Superman. I love it so
yes
much. Like season 2, it is like Avatar: Last Airbender anime/animation is charming. It's great. It's Superman year 1, year 2. Him and Lois's relationship are so great. His friendship with Jimmy. They introduced Supergirl. And it's like the last episode had very like not as violent, but Invincible like themes of who are you, your warrior, what are you going to do? It was fantastic. I love this episode. It is appointment television when it drops on. I can't watch it Sunday morning because I'm working, but Sunday evenings, you better believe I'm pulling up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wait, your church doesn't have an evening service? How dare you, sir? Reverend Justin.
No, it doesn't. You can watch it
Well-
online in the evening if you want.
Yeah.
I have to. I work in the morning,
Yeah.
so I literally have to watch it.
Right.
Well, I was going to say the same thing that Will said, but I'll also say I've been watching Acolyte, and
Yeah.
I got to watch the Star Wars stuff. As even if I don't always love it, I got to watch it, and it's been interesting. I
yeah.
want to know what the turn this is about to take.
I could throw that in too. I've been watching Acolyte, keeping up on it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have a good conversation when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Fellas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If no one else said anything, I was going to mention it and then infuriate
That-
Will because I just think it's
that-
the most average show I've ever seen. It's
I will.
Act
done
like-
nothing to infuriate me, and it's done nothing to excite me. I am
Yeah, that's
totally
fair. You're not
disinterested.
talking about My Adventures of Superman. You're talking about
No.
Yeah,
Acolyte.
Acolyte. My,
Yeah.
I gave up on my Adventures of Superman like halfway through season 1.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm?
Okay, yeah. I'll disregard Joshua for that, but I am agreeing with him for the Acolyte. I am not having fun. I don't think it's written for me.
Yeah,
I'll just put
I
it
just
that
don't-
way.
I just don't care. However, if they do a spin-off show that's all about the witches that showed up, I'd watch that. I'm interested in the witches. I think they're
That's what- Goodness gracious.
I like
Josh,
Star Wars
you're on
witches. I think they're
fire
cool.
tonight, dude.
Also, I'm just going to shout out a couple other things. You can see this on our comic book catch-up. You hear me talk more, but Mortal Terrors, and then of course Scotty Young is doing Ain't No Grave. Issue 2 recently came out. So freaking good. So freaking good. All right. Anybody have anything else for the lightning round?
Yeah, House of the Dragon episode 1 released not too long ago. It was a very good start back. I'm ready to see more.
Mm.
I'm with you. Ditto.
That's fair. Anybody else? All right, then we're going to call that a wrap on the lightning round, and we're going to jump into Inside Out 2. A little bit different from what we usually talk about, but you guys know I'm a huge Disney nerd. I love anything Disney animation, and Pixar falls under that for me. Pixar is fantastic. Inside Out, the original, did a lot of groundbreaking stuff as far as animation. This one didn't do so much with animation, although the animation scenes with hockey, freaking awesome. So freaking cool. But the reason this popped up on my thing, before it started showing up on all of my Instagram feed and Facebook feed and all over my algorithms, everybody's talking about it. The first thing I saw was actually in my podcast feed. 3 different science podcasts I follow all talked about this film. So I don't know. Has anybody else seen Inside Out 2 yet?
I have.
Christian has?
Yes.
What are your thoughts, Christian, before we do anything else?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's not as good as the first one, but that doesn't mean it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not as good. And then I enjoyed the journey of Riley, growing up, going through puberty, and then these 4 new emotions showing up, wrecking her world. Well, what teenager hasn't gone through that? And they got me again. They made me cry in the first film. They made me cry again this time during her
Right.
panic attack.
Yeah. So I think most of the audience reviews have been close, but it hasn't been quite as good as the first one. I think I like it probably just as good. The only thing that really kept me from it, and this is like more of like a societal comment than anything, just because it is the month of June, and I know who's on my Facebook feed. I was like, man, if Disney does something to promote LGBTQ, and I have to hear everybody argue about it for the next month, I like I had a little bit of anxiety about that happening. Even though I would have supported the message, I hate having to hear all the fighting all the time. Like I was like, I don't need that in my life,
Pride
Like,
Month
let
is
the
very
movie be a movie.
quiet this year.
I agree.
And I think it's calculated because they really overstepped last year.
We could
In
talk
terms
a
of
lot.
Disney. In terms of Disney.
Anyway, well, Strange New Worlds was something Disney did that was like very LGBTQ. I thought it was really good, but no, not Strange
World.
Yeah, Strange World, not Strange New Worlds. Thank you. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Talking about Inside Out 2, so they introduced some new emotions. She's going through puberty this time. The big thing that comes up is what emotions they chose. And there's a little bit of controversy around a little bit of stuff like that. Before we get into that, though, Christian, since me and you were the only ones who watched it, 0 to 10, where are you putting it? And then where would you put the first one?
The first one's an easy 10 for me. This one's probably maybe an 8.5, 9 at the most.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd put the first one at a 9 and this one at a 8.5. 8.5. Yeah. I mean, they're close, but okay. Yeah. So this one, the big controversy. So the new emotions that they chose. Once you hit puberty, on top of what you already have, you have disgust, love, fear, and sadness. This film adds anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui. Or ennui? How do you say that? Ennui? I don't know. I don't know how to say
Ennui.
that.
It's French and pretentious.
I hate it, but it's just basically disinterest. It's how I feel about the Acolyte.
Indy?
But no, it was interesting, the choice that these are the 4 that came in. And of course, there's a little bit of retconning because the last movie you saw full-grown adults and they still only had 4 emotions. And they even kind of play a joke about that at the end where you see anxiety pop up in Dad. And he's like, wait a minute, does she like a boy? Mom, was it one of them? No, they showed up in the mom and the dad. They just both said different things.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, the dad's thing though, he immediately responded with, "Who cares? Let's watch the game." Yeah, it was fun. Anxiety kind of comes in and basically overrides the system now that they're in puberty, and the other emotions end up having to kind of like fight back and find a way to have harmony with these new emotions. It's an interesting tale. For me, the thing that was interesting, so when I heard some of the scientific advisors, a lot of them, they agreed with this choice, but a few of them said something that should have been included instead of one of these. They should have included compassion, because a lot of psychologists will say in puberty is the time that you really develop the capacity to understand and feel compassion for others. And they felt like the movie chose just for what we usually think of as bad emotions, and it would have been interesting and better if they would have chose something like compassion to add instead of one of these. What do you guys think of that? Like, especially as like, I really want to hear from our pastors who have raised children who've gone through puberty. What do y'all think of that take, that compassion should have been one instead?
Justin, you take the first one, and I can.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just share right up front. Like, the reason I haven't seen it, I'm not really interested. I might watch it for streaming, and I don't have anything else to watch. I feel like I kind of get what they're doing in the first one, great, and I kind of it's kind of predictable what they may do in the second one, and I don't necessarily need to see anxiety personified for me to know that it's real. It stresses me out. Like I don't need that in my room, that energy, because anyway. And I don't deal with panic attacks. I don't, and I know a lot of people that do. My daughter does, and has that. So like, to watch it on the screen and process it, I don't know if I just needed that. So but they're all real. Those are all things. And I know they've done their homework with psychologists and therapists to kind of think through those things. And I think Disney has done its homework to portray that in ways that can help people, and the people that say they love it and it's helpful. So awesome. But yeah, like a more positive emotion of compassion and learning what it means to be compassionate towards other people. That would have been a great move. And I think learning to be human around other humans, and then how to relate to others, and then kind of manage your emotions, and then also understanding, let go of the emotions you feel like you don't have control over, and then learning how to love another person, have compassion towards another person, empathy towards another person, I think is a big thing that hopefully this movie is teaching us to do, and teaching children and teenagers how to do that. I'm all for that.
So
Yeah.
real quick, sorry, before Justin goes, because I think it might help to give a little bit of context, something that the film does do different from the original. So the original is sadness is good, and we have to learn that. This one, it adds a new element. It's not just new emotions. There's also some of those core memories and stuff have developed her sense of self. And that's a big part of this movie, is who do you believe yourself to be? And at the beginning, she believes herself to be a good person. And then it kind of takes over when anxiety goes, and she has this new identity, and she thinks, I'm not good enough. That's how she identifies herself. And by the end of the film, it kind of teaches a more nuanced thing of like, hey, with all these emotions and all these core memories, I'm able to develop the sense of self that says, hey, sometimes I'm a great friend. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm a surfer, but I'm also a pastor, right? Like, you know,
Mhm.
playing on Will's stuff. And so I thought that was really interesting how they played with
Yeah.
sense of self too. So it is a different film in that
Does
way.
it share like the both and thing is important, and it's hard for, you know, in terms of how our brains develop it is very either or, black and white in certain developments, and eventually as you get older you can hold that nuance. Was there a sense of like a progression of like your sense of self grows and progresses and you can hold those nuance together? Because Will, you know, now at soon to be 52 is different than Will at 22 and at 13, but I'm still the same person, but I continue to like grow, and I'm a process of becoming to my process friends, you know. So um does it do that? Does it show that up a little bit?
Yeah, unfortunately, mostly near the end. And it kind of sets it up, which I actually like how they do it, because it kind of sets it up as either I'm a good person or I'm not good enough. And you're like, oh no, she's got to learn that she is still a good person. And it's like, actually, that's not the lesson. The lesson is she's got to learn to hold all these things in tension, that sometimes she's good, sometimes she's not. And to hold all of this. And yeah, so it does kind of lean a lot on that process idea. I think it would be a good process theology thing. Maybe Josh Patterson will watch it and review it with me. But I part of the question for me that I guess I should have explained the movie before I asked you, and this is why I wanted to say before Justin came in, that idea of like if it was one of those other emotions, instead of them it had compassion. I think compassion as a core emotion really could change that conversation around identity and how we see ourselves. So that's one thing that I was like, if they changed that it would have been a different movie. It would have been interesting.
Yeah, compassion towards others and compassion towards oneself.
Towards yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Justin, the other dad who's seen kids go through puberty.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I have too much to add other than this past week was Youth Week at our church after Vacation Bible School, and the youth went to see it, and they
Nice.
I got to see them as they came back into the building, and they really enjoyed it. They said it was a great movie. It resonated with them in the place where they are, and so I think that's a thumbs up to the movie as teens come in and say, yeah, I felt seen by that movie. You know, as to whether compassion could have been added, I'm all for the adding of compassion as an emotion to explore, and one that you can put in tension with some of these other emotions that we feel. Consolations and desolations, to use kind of Ignatian type language, and so there are a lot of, we talk a lot about the desolations, the desolate feelings of the teenage years, like anxiety, like this concern about a sense of self and perhaps a fragility that's there. But we don't always talk about the constructive emotions, and I think that's one of the things that the first movie did well, is put things in a kind of a balance. And so I would hope that the second would, or future movies would, but not having seen it, that's all I think I should say about it. But I do like this idea of adding compassion to the
our
mix.
youth are going to see it on Sunday too. I think that our youth group, and they made it like a family thing. So our youth director made it like, hey, you know, young families, you know, come out, let's do like a family intergenerational thing, which I think is important, and hopefully spend some time processing it at the end too, because I think that's mental health and all that is important.
Yeah, I want to see if Matt or Christian had anything they want to add before we move on. But I did want to say, as far as like having seen the film, the only thing I think I would add, there's a bit of a not side story, but one of the storylines involves her relationship to her friends who are going to be moving to another school, and her having a lot of anxiety, not knowing how to deal with that. And I think compassion could have added a lot to the conversation of how she's going to navigate that kind of friendship dynamic, and not only the identity of self and stuff. I think it could have added a lot to the story. So just watching the movie, I'm like, oh, that could have been an interesting addition to the film. And really, I feel like I would have gotten rid of the one I can't pronounce, because like he was cool, but I don't feel like he played that much of a role in the film. So I think he could have, if I had to replace one, I probably would have replaced him with compassion. Christian or Matt, do y'all have anything you want to add before we move
on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just having sound issues. I was making sure you could hear me. Yeah, I think that's about right. Teenage-ish. I mean, obviously, it depends on the kid, like 11 to 15. But that is definitely when we begin to understand fully that other people think differently than we do and have other opinions from us. So, anxiety and FOMO are a part of that, but also compassion is it builds out of that as well. And I think like age and hormones and all of that is part of it, but also absolutely going to be environment and all of that as well. I do like how the memories helped form identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Christian, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I probably, instead of compassion, would have named it empathy. In that time is when, you learn sympathy a little younger, but like actually understanding the feelings of someone else and then being able to, I went through that. That's kind of the age range where it's not perfected by any stretch of the imagination, but it's beginning to have that awareness of, they stubbed their toe. I can either laugh or remember the time I stubbed my toe, or they just went through a breakup. I can help them through that because I went through this. So maybe something like that is what I would have done instead of compassion, but I get what they're going for by wanting to add that other positive emotion in that regard.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, then we can go on to the reason that there's 5 of us isn't because everyone wanted to hear me gush about a Pixar film. It's so that we could talk about Doctor Who.
Right.
Series 14/1/50 something 60. I don't know. How you look at it, Doctor Who has kind of done another soft reboot. So in the 2000s, it went from classic
2005,
Doctor Who, and then now here in 2024 or /2023, whatever, we said, all right, we're starting over again in the Disney Plus era of Doctor Who. Just anybody want to just like open with first thoughts? Like where are we at with this?
I've been trying very hard to just judge it as its own thing. Not come in with any kind of expectancy based on like previous stuff. Because if I did that, all but a couple episodes of this, I would absolutely hate. But judging it based on its own merit and allowing it to tell its story and be what it is, it's not bad.
Yeah, I had a very different first impression. I've just loved it ever since that Christmas special. I've been watching Doctor Who since David Tennant was still live, and I've seen everything you can get your hand on the classics and a few things you can't get your hands on in America on the classics. Don't ask how I did that. I just did. I love it. It's my all-time favorite show. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And this comes on, and I've been feeling down on it with like Matt Smith was, and then you had a little bit of a light with Peter Capaldi for me, where I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then Chris Chibnall took over, and you had Jodie Whittaker's there, and it's not her fault, but didn't love it. And then boom, new Doctor shows up after some David Tennant specials, and I'm like, this is the Doctor. This is what I've been waiting for, and I've been excited. I've been loving it. Anybody you want to do any other first impressions before we just kind of break down the season?
First impressions were I was real big on it. I still am for the most part. The finale ruined a little bit of my hype for it, but I'll get there when we get there. But for the most part, yes, I'm in it to win it for this series. I'm ready to see what the Christmas special will be about. Hopefully, we finally see Susan after all this build up. Who knows? And then, I'm looking to see I can never say his name right.
Yeah, it's just Shooty.
As we continue on with him as the Doctor.
Right.
Yeah, I like the little tease that we'll be seeing much more of him. That was good.
I'll do first impression just because I'm kind of new to the game. Like I, watched Doctor Who when I was a kid. The older ones and back in the 80s. And with access to Who now with Disney Plus and Max, I'm going back. But I've loved this, just going and having fun with it, and just had a blast. My wife and I watched it together. She made a comment. She's like, "Is this kind of like British Twilight Zone?" I'm like, "Yeah. You can kind of say that." And there are moments where you're like, "This is very fun, joyous adventure," and then like flat out creepy horror. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, am I gonna have a nightmare tonight?" So going back,
There was quite a range this season.
wide range, but I just love the adventure and the sci-fi of it and the characters, and really had fun with them as individuals. And I will say, like that final episode to get to the end, I got my my eyes got sweaty. My eyes got sweaty a little bit.
Man, it was a journey.
So,
Yeah.
Doctor Who, my first impression is this. Doctor Who has had, I think, 3 major movements that secure a next leg of the future for the Doctor. The first is the second Doctor. So Troughton, whether you really love Troughton or not, if Troughton hadn't been convincing, we would not have any Doctor Who afterwards.
Yep.
So you've got to be able to say, hey, this is a new person that's continuous in some ways with the old, but wow, there's some really interesting new things here for me to take on. So there's Troughton. The second person who did it is really David Tennant, because we had the first season in 2005 and we thought, okay, Eccleston, but David Tennant is why this modern iteration of Doctor Who has continued as long as it has. And here in Ncuti is doing the same thing. Now we can debate whether he's as well as the others, but we really had a tragically low moment where it felt like Doctor Who was dying on the vine. This has given enough energy for all of us to say whether we really loved it or we had, or we got some guarded optimism here. Let's see what happens next. And so I actually think this iteration has done a great job from that standpoint.
Yeah. So to what Justin's saying, two things. One is what this season did that I think is really important. Just looking at it from like a meta analysis. One is that I think they finally proved Doctor Who can move past David Tennant, because there are people who loved Matt Smith or people who love Peter Capaldi, whatever. But ever since Tennant, the fandom has been split. There hasn't been everybody loves Matt Smith. There's people like me who are like, this is bad. When are we going to get past this? And not everybody loved Peter Capaldi. There are people who just don't know good TV. Then obviously not everybody like Jodie Whittaker's run. And then we get back to David Tennant and we're all like, yeah, it's great. We just need David Tennant forever. And he was faced with the monumental task of proving Doctor Who can be Doctor Who without David Tennant. And I think he did a great job at that. Like, I don't like him as much as David Tennant, but you know what? This is the first time since David Tennant that I'm like, no, I'm genuinely excited to see the next season, and I don't feel any need for a David Tennant cameo or anything. I'm just
I love Ncuti. He's probably the high point of this whole series for me. Is his portrayal, just the nuance between the sorrow of someone who is thousands of years old, and just the drive to continue living because he feels like he has to, because he's the last. I love all of that. It's just and this is just for you, Josh. The whole thing just felt too Disney.
Nope. My problem, only if I had to have any problem, it wasn't Disney enough. I honestly, I would not have known at all there was any Disney influence personally.
The musical episodes don't give it away to you that it's Disney?
No, that just shows me that it's very clearly that Russell T Davies is doing something bigger than this season. Because also, most Disney things don't have music in it. Take Inside Out 2, for example. Anyway, Anyway, the other big thing I was going to say, though, that this really helped the series move on for him, Flux was so atrocious of a plot that it was like, oh, how are we going to move past this? And then we were all like, maybe he'll just come out and say we're going to ignore it and act like it didn't happen. And then David T. Russell's is like, nah, I'm going to incorporate it. I'm not going to act like it didn't happen. And for me, that gave me all kinds of anxiety. I had a little orange thing controlling my brain, and I'm like, wait a minute. Why can't we just move past it, act like it didn't happen? And the season finale of this season it didn't get rid of Lux, but it fixed some of the outcome so that the show was able to move forward without us all having to constantly think about how bad that was. So that I love both of those things. Before moving forward, Christian, if you just had to quickly summarize the plot for this season, how would you do that?
Sure. So we start. 15th Doctor has doing his own thing. Finds this mystery girl. Name is Ruby, who doesn't really know where her parents are. She was left at a church on Christmas Eve. Some goblins, as fantasy elements start coming into our science fiction series, come in, try and murder some babies. There's a nice little musical number about that. They're able to join up. Doctor has a mystery. Who is Ruby Sunday? And then your mileage may vary about where that goes later on. We see some space babies. Then we go and deal with the Celestial Toy Maker's child, the Maestro, who is trying to take music for their own and use it for their own ends. Then we go to where they end up on an alien planet for the first time for Ruby, and the Doctor steps on a landmine, and they have to deal with the efforts of war and how religion factors into that. Then we have 73 Yards, where the Doctor steps on a fairy circle, and in this disappears, leaving Ruby alone with a mysterious entity, person, woman, who knows? They're not going to tell you because that would ruin the mystery. As we get to the point of her eventually figuring out what to do, she stops bad things from happening. The Doctor's brought back to reality. Then we move on to Dot and Bubble, where on another alien world where a bunch of posh people, rich, affluent, young people are just living in a literal bubble to where they can't see things. They're attacked by these slug-like monsters, and the Doctor and Ruby try to save them, only to find out that they're okay with them saving them, but they're not going to listen because the Doctor happens to be black, which I think was handled fairly well. Then we go to Rogue, where we have like a really bad Bridgerton episode, and I say that because I don't respect Bridgerton at all. It's not my thing. And if anything, there's a thrown-in romance there that's almost, if not as bad as The Girl in the Fireplace with Madame du Pompadour. Did not care for anything that had to say or do. Outside of the cosplaying aliens were kind of fun. Then we go to The Legend of Ruby Sunday, where going back to Unit, the Doctor and Ruby are going to try and figure out who she is, but they find out that it's a mystery woman who's been there every single time they've traveled somewhere. It's Student Triad, who is about to bring some new technology to the world. Turns out she is under the control of an entity known as Sutek, who is from the Fourth Doctor Adventure to Pyramid of Mars, and he's about to destroy and kill everything in the universe. We get the Empire of Death, where we find out it doesn't really matter who Ruby is because the mystery was fun, guys. And eventually they're able to take down Sutek, conquering death along the way, and potentially maybe even bringing back Gallifrey or any number of people who have died in the past, as Sutek has messed with the time stream and his death causing powers canceled out, and now life is coming back, so maybe even overturning Flux. We shall see.
From now on in the future, I'm going to make sure that I clarify the season and not every single episode in the season.
Okay.
No, I was supposed to be a lot shorter.
Well done.
But that was it was good.
It's very well
Thank
done.
you, Will.
And let me say
you.
one thing about this after that summary. So one of the things that I think was really good about this season of Doctor Who that harkens back to classic Doctor Who is that we were able to have a season where we meet new quirky characters without any need for Cybermen or Daleks or any of the standard anchor Doctor Who villains that you kind of need to insert to help the fans say, okay, all right, this is still Doctor Who. I'm going to keep on watching it. And so in this way, it reminds us much more of classic Doctor Who than modern Doctor Who.
Yeah. I thought,
Yeah, so
light comes back on. No, real fast. I thought in Boom, I thought those were going to be derelicts. I thought they're going to be fighting like that. I thought that's what's going to happen. And I was kind of
yeah,
surprised, but also happy they just kind of did its own thing.
yeah. I want to say really quick before we move on to other things too. There's so much I could say about the season as a whole. I liked all the fantasy stuff. I really liked Maestro. I really liked the goblins. I thought all that stuff was fun. But the best thing that for me was of course the Star Trek fan doesn't like it. Um, the big thing though for me, I got so excited in that season finale when Death is in the middle of dying, and the doctor points and goes, the Ood Sphere. I was so like I was ecstatic. I had the same
Yes.
reaction the doctor did. I was like, the Ood are back. I said it like the same time he did, and I was like, this is great. This is what I need in a show where like I'm jumping up with the characters. Like,
I
yeah,
love the
that's what I
Ood.
need. Me too. Fascinating
Yeah.
concepts. Okay, so were there any episodes that stood out to you guys that you really want to like just take a minute to say something about specifically? I got two for myself, but I want to.
Well, I'll
return
just
to you
say,
guys.
I liked them all. They're all different for me, but I think 73 Yards was creepy enough that I was like, man, I'm watching a flat out horror movie. And it was like, it really sat with me. Like, what is going on here? And the mystery, my wife was somewhat dissatisfied with the ending. I kind of liked it, but I thought,
It felt very
I thought
Twilight.
it was like a Black Mirror episode or something, you know?
Yeah,
Dot and Bubbles the same way, but yeah, that's when we were like, oh, I think we're watching like modern day Twilight Zone, Black Mirror, something like that, which I thought was cool in a good way, good storytelling.
yeah. I'm going to insert one of the two I wanted to highlight now because I've just been so excited to hear Justin talk to me about this. Like, this is really like I just wanted to talk to Justin about it, and I almost just called him, and I was like, "Nah, we should save it for the podcast." Which I've done that a few times. And I'm like, I feel like I might be getting on Justin's nerves because sometimes as soon as I see an episode, I text him. I'm like, "Dude," and they're like, "Wait a minute, this guy is
please
like
do. I mean, I'm in the
father
same
and a
boat.
reverend, and he's like a busy guy, and I'm over here like, "Yo, did you see that creature?" But no, for me, I loved the episode just on its own. I thought it was so cool, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. And then I start hearing from some of my friends, and I start hearing some of the conversations around it. And what kills me, and this is like, I'm going to do an on-air poll of the five of us. Someone told me, and so far it's been true from my experience, that no white person noticed what every other person of color did notice. Where we went through this, and to us, it was like such a shock at the end that they were racist. I was like, oh, I didn't even know. And there was like, yeah, there was only white people the whole time. You didn't notice? And I was like, I surely didn't. Like, I thought she just didn't like the doctor because he was outside the system. And I'm like, man, I feel bad. I really did not notice that.
Didn't notice.
Justin, you want to comment on that? Yeah,
I thought for sure some of the people there were not white.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I wasn't even thinking about race the whole time until the end. It's like, oh, okay, sure. That puts some things in perspective, but
yeah, like,
I mean,
it shocked me a lot.
Yeah.
Will, did you notice? Or
I slightly noticed, but I think the head fake was like how immersed they were, and I was so captivated by being so in their own bubble of technology and like the Black Mirror understanding of social media and your own algorithms and being blind to what's around you because you're looking at your screens the whole time. That was like the concern. I didn't really notice the race or like,
yeah, I think that's how they got
male,
me too.
female, like all that stuff was kind of like, no, I'm just like appalled at what our future could be with looking at screens all the time. And then the flip at the end of kind of the race aspect was
oh yeah.
there. So,
yeah. And both things are important to talk about, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's where
yeah, let's Justin first. I want to hear
this is why it was one of the reasons why that was such a clever episode and really one of the best episodes in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Is because it was just hitting on so many different levels. So yes, I noted this reaction to the Doctor, and I note it because I felt it before, right? It's just it's instantly registers, and so this episode allowed us to, on multiple levels, talk about the ways that we are separated from one another, the ways we devalue one another. I mean, just so many things this episode did, and did it brilliantly because it was so subtle. So yeah. I love that episode. And while I'm talking about loving episodes, I think that the Boom, 73 Yards, and Dot and Bubble trilogy within this series were so good, so rich that it was just kind of hard to see how you top this this peak that we were given. And so some of our feelings about the season is really because those 3 episodes were some of the strongest episodes in Doctor Who.
Yeah, you're muted, buddy.
Yeah, I was right there with Will, and I was like, hey, yeah, this social media, oh yeah, this stuff can be dangerous. And I loved how they were showing that and demonstrating it. And then to show how it was so funny because I'm watching it almost judgmental about these people. Like, oh, they don't notice the world around them. How could they not notice this? And then boom, at the end, it's revealed to me there was something I didn't notice the whole time. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm these guys. Like, I'm blind. And it's not necessarily because of social media, but I'm also blind to some stuff that's right in front of me. But Will, did you want to talk as someone who is a pastor at the foot of you and Justin are both right there at the foot of UNC Chapel Hill. How does this ring true of how we're blind to things because of our phones or technology that we immerse ourselves in?
Yeah, and then I'll just add it definitely rings true. But and Black Mirror has a great episode about that too, like in terms of likes and chasing likes and that kind of stuff. But the whole aspect, but also coming off of COVID and reconnecting with people. We were forced and rightfully so isolating for other people's safety, but then online, and then we're Zooming and we're connecting with people in different ways digitally. But then how do you come out of that and reconnect with people and learn how to be face to face with others and notice around you? And there are some things that were revealed within the pandemic in terms of race and racism and equity and sexism and science and how we relate to all those things were there. So I think, how do we connect our algorithms? Who do we swipe away because we don't want to hear from them, or we don't like the way they look, or whatever? Who's in my algorithm or not? I think rings really, really true. So it was a good social commentary, and I loved how it spoke to that. And that's good sci-fi, man. They have adventure, they have weird aliens, they have tech, but they also speak to and hold up a mirror to what's going on in our own society. So I thought it was really, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to say, the tech will be here. We can use it. We can be good stewards of it. It's a tool to help us in how we engage with each other. But man, we're trying to find ways in our communities and faith communities to really connect and go deeper with one another in relationships, and see as other people as human beings, not just those in our silos or algorithms or had the most likes, blah blah blah.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I know we have on the show before. We already talked about the first 2 episodes. We talked a little bit about Boom, 73 Yards. Now we talked about Dot and Bubble. Are there any other episodes that stood out that you guys want to mention something about before we? I have another one, but I'm going to deter to someone else.
I'll do the Legend of Ruby Sunday, our penultimate episode.
Uh-huh.
I watched that with a good friend. It was fun.
Yes, and that did heighten the experience. President, no, I was at Joshua's house and we watched it together. And I had that moment where I was like, okay, with the information presented to me, do I actually think I understand who this villain actually is? And I looked at Joshua and I said, okay, follow me for a second. He said, okay.
I thought he was crazy.
Right. Susan Triad Technologies. What is a diminutive of Susan? Sue. What is a shortened form of technologies? Tech. And I said, Sue Tech. And if I'm wrong, you can call me wrong. And
I really did. I thought he was crazy. I'm like, they're not doing that.
And then it shows up on screen. And I'm like, yes, one of my favorite old Who villains.
Well done.
Back. Yeah. And how he ends up dying in the finale. Your mother's my fairy. But I was like, yes, I'm so hyped for the next episode. This is a universe-ending threat that just came out. That if I rewatched the Pyramid of Mars earlier to remember what happened there, and Tom Baker is not showing it on his face, but the Fourth Doctor is just terrified at the prospect of Sutek getting out.
Mhm.
And it's brought back here again, and now he's free, and it shows what he can do. I
Yeah.
was so happy about this. And then we have the whole thing with Ruby trying to find her pass to an unit working alongside them because, hey,
Oh.
the doctor has asked us to do a favor. Like,
Unit's functional now.
Yeah.
Yes.
we're not going to tell him no. And then we get to the scene where it turns around and this enigmatic figure who left Ruby behind. Could it be her mother? Well, we find something else later on where it just turns out she's just really very much of a big giant ham, where knowing there's a CCTV camera there, she points at a street sign instead of anything of importance because that's what she wants for her daughter's name. But I'm not going to go there. We're not talking about the finale yet.
I just want to say for the record,
yeah, I'll just say real fast, like I like that aspect of the end, and I can't wait to get into it with Christian a little bit. I love
well, to be contrary to both of them,
following-
I don't
Yeah.
buy the end. I've watched Doctor Who with Russell T Davies before. I know how multiple series long things happen with him. I don't buy any of it. I don't trust
Yeah.
a single thing that happened that episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say though, one of the reasons, and I didn't really talk about it, but one of the reasons I just wouldn't have thought Sutek, like I wouldn't have believed they would done that, is because like one of my first thoughts, I was like, wait a minute, that was just cultural appropriation. They can't do that in today's time. And I love that they do it anyway. And then the doctor even's like, oh yeah, that was cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what?
that was good.
Yeah, that was good. So I had the other episode I wanted to talk about before we did the finale stuff.
Mhm.
I think we should talk about Rogue, not only because it is the episode where we get a same-sex, we get LGBTQ representation with the doctor himself. I really do like the episode. Contrary to Christian, one of my favorite episodes is A Girl in the Fireplace. And actually, my wife, one of the few Doctor Who episodes she'll rewatch with me is A Girl in the Fireplace. She'll watch that and blink, and there's like 2 others. One of them is the werewolf one that I don't remember the name of. But when this one comes out, I think I'm going to get her to watch it later on. She hasn't seen it yet, but I think she'll enjoy it. I like the era stuff that they're trying to do here. I like that they were shape-shifting aliens that were different from Zygons in like a meaningful way, not just they're technically not Zygons. No, they had meaningful differentiations. And I like that they kind of left a loose end there for them to revisit later on with what happened to this guy. I think it was a fun episode overall. And it kind of, stands on its own. The doctor had good chemistry there. And it was one of those, like, it combined all the things I like about Doctor Who. We had some like era traveling stuff. So it's just the doctor in a different era. You had like good relationships that he's building along the way, new aliens, space, tech from the future. Like we just combine all the stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this is like if I just had like a checklist, you did it. It was good. I enjoyed it.
So Rogue is a bounty hunter. Is that what he is? He's hunting down.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his ship looked awesome. I loved his
Jack Harkness wannabe.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the history there, right? So there's been spin-offs of like Torchwood and that kind of stuff from Doctor Who. Am I right?
Yes.
So, and some of those guys from Torchwood came to like North Carolina Comic-Con at some point. I wasn't following it, but it was like definitely huge lines for those guys. But in terms of I wasn't as familiar with history there, but I like, hey, this guy could have his own spinoff, or I like that ship and I like the charisma. And he was also in
cool.
was he in Hamilton as well? Was he the king?
I don't know the actor.
I don't know the actor, but I think he has
Yeah.
I
know.
But
do
anyway,
think
I kind of liked it too. It was a little different from the other, in terms of like you said, for episode 4, 5, and 6, and then you go to Rogue before you get to the ending, was one of those things where they were let's have fun with this, let's do it, let's lean into the thing. And, I like the episode too.
Yeah. Well, we didn't do a lot of time traveling in this season, so I feel like it was more about different places than it was different times. So I like that they did that. But I will say that part of why I think my only complaint really is that it's not Jack Harkness. Like it feels like it was meant to be Jack Harkness, and the only reason it wasn't Jack Harkness is because that actor has been canceled and we can't use him. Like that's kind of how it felt like to me. Which I'm for. There's really good reasons that people don't want to work with him, but it's also kind of like, man, I wish the character was a little bit more different from Jack than just technically being someone new.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, like and that's why like this was no surprise to me at all, is because the whole Captain Jack thing. There was like, yeah. There's been chemistry between him and the Doctor since the Doctor dances. So this really, there will be people who disagree, but this was not a play from left field.
Yeah. Yeah. This wasn't Disney being woke. This is still Doctor Who made by the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the history behind that. So I was like, wait, can he have relationships? Can he not have relationships? I thought he was. I thought he's a Time Lord that's kind of like asexual. I'm like, what's going on here? Doesn't get relationships with his
Depends on who's writing.
Yeah, depends on who's,
Yeah.
right. I was a little confused, but I was like, all right, yeah, the internet's gonna have fun with this one. You know, coming off of like watching the message boards for the Acolyte, I couldn't wait for this one too. So I was like, oh,
surprisingly, I just really didn't see much about this. I saw a lot about people upset with the Acolyte. So much so, like I was really gonna wait till it was done and just binge watch it. And then everybody was complaining about episode 3, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what the controversy was. And then I finished episode 3, and I was like, what was the controversy?
It was boring.
I was like, huh?
You know, so here's one of the things that I've heard about from my friends in the LGBTQ community is that Jack Harkness felt too caricatured. So yes, glad that Jack Harkness was there, but it felt like a bit of a caricature. And Rogue felt, as an episode, it felt more natural. So I think that is so that's a positive. We have in various episodes encountered LGBTQ themes, some more awkwardly done than others, and so in this way this episode was an achievement. What I take issue with is this sense of like the Doctor is doing everything so very quickly. So Ruby is his best friend really quickly. And like the Doctor had to go through some stuff with Donna in order to call Donna best friend, like went through some serious stuff. This idea of falling for someone so very quickly. If I am an ancient being, maybe one or two things happen. Either I clearly know what I'm looking for in an instant and can make decisions very much more quickly than the rest of us, or I actually take my time and am a little bit more discerning. And so I tend to think it'd be the latter.
Yeah.
And so that's what I took issue with here in Rogue. It's that these relationships are being microwaved in a way that I'm not yet accustomed to in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So
I'm
two
going to
things
second
with
Justin
that
a lot.
was that one, I feel like a lot of the stuff with like the Friends, especially, like it happened too fast because their season was just too short, and that's what Christian's about to rant about.
Yes.
But the other thing, like I do think for me personally, as I get older, I do become a lot less like, oh, someone needs to be this, and this before I'm open to a relationship of any kind. Like I have become a lot quicker to be like, you know what? I'm actually just kind of open to having people in my life and figuring out what it is later on. Like I'm not like, I don't have to define stuff as quickly. So I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, I have this relationship. Let's see what goes and let it go more naturally. And I'm married, so a lot of this stuff doesn't apply to me when it comes to like that kind of relationship. But like I've known people in my own family who got older, and after things have happened, like it's become something where they just let stuff happen a little bit quicker because they're just more open to letting things happen. Like it doesn't ending a relationship or losing someone seems to be less and less terrifying the more you've gone through it, I guess. I don't know. But that's just kind of what I've seen. Christian, go ahead. Rant.
I will rant. If there was ever an episode that was personally written in a way that I would never like it, it was this one. Removing the whole relationship to begin with, same sex. Forget about that. That's not why I'm offended. I know who I'm dealing with. It's Russell T. Davies, or would you call him earlier, Joshua Davies T. Russell, or something like that?
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, of course you have. So,
I've heard it both ways.
Let's start with the plot of. It's about Bridgerton cosplaying in actual history, which is something that I could not care less about if I tried. So I'm not going to be in it to win it for this one from the very beginning. And then you introduce Discount Jack Harkness, who, if we had spent more time with his character over multiple episodes, I could maybe believe it a little more that he and the doctor might be romantically interested in one another. And the same like Justin was mentioning about him and Ruby being best friends. It's like, I believe that they're friends. I'm not sure they're best friends yet because we've just had 8 episodes, 2 of which happen on the same day, pretty much at the very end. I need more time with these people. So I don't know what the budget is. Why don't you just stretch it out just a little bit more to give more time so that we know who these people are? So that I know who the 15th Doctor is. I don't think we've fully submitted who he is. And I like what is being done with him. I just don't think I know him.
I mostly agree. Here's my thing before, like, there are some shows I love that they're shorter. For personally, the Miss Marvel miniseries that Disney Plus did, I wish it was shorter than it was. I think it went too long. But then this kind of show where I'm like, actually, we needed more time for this to air out and for this to grow. And like, we live in a time of streaming where like there are no real rules. I don't understand why these companies keep trying to follow formulas of, okay, we're doing short seasons now, or we're doing long seasons now. It's like, hey, just do what you need to do to tell the story, man. Like
Yes.
it's no
Right. Well, and it's quantity over quality. Really, they want to turn out 20 shows a year that have 8 episodes instead of making 4 good shows with full 20 episode seasons. And people are so scared of filler now too. I feel like that's the other thing. Because in a 20 episode season, there's gonna be episodes that are and it's like that's a bad thing now.
I just want to say on the record that technically Scooby Natural was a filler episode, and I dare anyone to say that wasn't a masterpiece. All right.
The only good thing that came after season 5.
Christian. More on that Thursday, guys. So let's go ahead and move on to this finale.
Can I say a few things?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we were talking Dot and Bubble, and I didn't really say anything. Mixed feelings there. I love the episode. It's fantastic sci-fi. It's fantastic social commentary. I hate it as Doctor Who.
Yeah, not following you there.
Well, so Doctor Who, whether it's classic Who, New Who did it some in the Moffat era, but and then obviously the Chibnall stuff, which we won't talk about. But to me, Doctor Who has never really been like a let's do relevant, pertinent social commentary type. It's always been, I'm just going to write a story about whatever. And it's more of this just telling a story to tell the story. It never had these poignant political social commentary type, other than like overarching like war is bad kind of,
Yeah, I was gonna say, there was the
Hmm.
whole genesis of the Dalek. That's kind of like the most
yes,
famous Doctor Who
but
story.
that's morality and that's ethics, and those are like more generic things than being like specifically relevant, targeted commentary.
Well, I think it was targeted a lot at like the transhumanism movements of the time, and then a lot of the war commentary that was happening at the time that was released.
And maybe I just don't know the history that was happening at the time, and that's true. But to me, that's not what Doctor Who does. It's not that kind of show. So while it was a fantastic story, and I absolutely love Dot and Bubble, I hate it as a Doctor Who episode.
All right. Yeah, I mean, everybody has opinions,
Hmm.
and that is one.
You want to talk?
Yeah, that's true. I still have the worst opinions here. Let's go back to My Adventures of Superman.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is clearly we are trying for some reinvention here, a fresh start, and Doctor Who again at various, especially from the movement from classic Who to new Who. I mean, that felt different and it felt discontinuous from classic when we started it, and so we didn't exactly know what to think, but we got on board. We liked it. We thought that it was newer and fresher toward what we needed as contemporary fans. And here, there's this another iteration of this where they are experimenting with a kind of resonance and relevance that will be for a time, and it'll run its course, and we'll have to see whether it stands up. But I do know that, gosh, I mean, as far as some sermon fodder, I could preach on a couple of these episodes,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
some
yeah.
fun with it. So
A few
from
of
that
these will preach, that's
standpoint,
for sure.
yeah, from that standpoint, I'm like, all right, let's just see where we go with this.
Yeah.
But I know you want to talk about some of the closing here as well.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
That finale
2/3
was
of the
great.
finale.
But the where was I? I was gonna mention something else too. Oh,
I'm
the
sorry.
other,
I am the derailer.
slightly concerned because I know they did not get really good reviews for this season. So I'm concerned of how they react to that, because I was what I was hoping would happen is everyone had the reaction that like me, Justin, and Christian, and maybe Will and Matthew seems to be like halfway there, where he likes it about half as much as I do. But but
I love
was hoping-
Shooty. He's great. I want to see more of him as the Doctor. I want to see more of him as the Doctor in more of like a classic Doctor Who kind of, more of a drawn out. That's the other thing, except for the finale, these were all single episode stories.
I love single episode stories, but that's not what I was. What was I saying? Sorry, I lost my train of thought with that.
The derailer.
I do
you
that.
suffered from the derailer. Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun.
ADHD plus derailing equals super bad. Someone help me
Finale.
out. Oh, yeah. What I was hoping would happen was that it would get all the reviews from people like me, Justin, and Christian, and Will, and half of Matthew, and it would be like, oh, hey, people love this. Next time we'll do it again, but with more episodes. And now I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna see bad reviews, and we're gonna get, it's gonna be longer before we get another season. They're just gonna keep doing short seasons, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
I'm worried about the reaction to this.
This is the Disney thing and the challenge of it. Now, Disney is distributing. I suppose if Disney says, "Hey, we're not going to do this," BBC will take it up in its customary way. But we all know that Disney prefers these short seasons that pack a lot in. I mean, so that's part of the just challenge of modern TV in the streaming era that is so dominated by Disney. Now, Disney is all about the ratings, y'all, and so I don't know what they'll do with it. I think Doctor Who will continue. I just don't know what in what form it will take. I just don't know about that.
You did give me a new thing to fantasize of what could happen. What could happen is people later jump on and the reviews go up. Then everyone really likes when they do with Daredevil, where they give us 9 episodes and then another 9 episodes for an 18 episode season. And then they go, hey, we'll do more 18 episode seasons and I'll get 18 episodes. That'll be great. But let's talk about death.
Yes.
Christian, when death shows up on the screen, does a little orange creature go to the monitor in your mind and start controlling you, or like what happened in that final episode?
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, Sutek comes from a Fourth Doctor story, the Pyramid of Mars, where he is from a race of beings known as the Osirans, I think. I should know, I just watched this recently. And they essentially were the gods of Egypt, pretty much in the same way for Stargate that happened. And he is essentially the god Set, although they make him more of a death god. Set was more of a god of storms and stuff like that. So not a good guy anyway. So it's okay for him to be Sutek. And his goal was the annihilation of all life except himself. And Sarah Jane and the Fourth Doctor were able to stop him. Yep. And then we get to Sutek here, who apparently, in a way that after rewatching that episode, I really kind of stretches credulity for how he was able to latch onto the TARDIS. But you know what? I'll go with it because he's back. He has been there the entire time since that episode, gathering power. So in the midst of the Time War, in the midst of when the Bi-Generation happened, somehow Sutek was there. Don't worry about it. He's there. And he portrays a menace here in that he almost wins. He almost gets everything he asked for. He annihilates life, just has people become dust because of his presence, because of how he has planted an agent, a Susan Triad, in various different forms across different points in time and space, to where his influence has grown, his power has grown, and now life is gone except for isolated pockets. Even the Daleks are gone, which would normally be a good thing, but here we are in this moment. So he is defeated in kind of a ham-fisted way at the end, with the Doctor reuses the little gravity or mavity gauntlets from earlier on from the Church of Ruby Road, where they tie a tether to his necklace or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, and drag him through time and space through the TARDIS, where, as kind of a cancellation of his death abilities, he is now bringing life to the pockets where he placed the Susan Triad stuff, and maybe even stuff beyond where he was. So we could have older villains and maybe even older companions come back who died.
Right.
Like, I mean, could Adric come back? Could we get, what is the name of, like, Azal, the Daemons? Could they come back at some point in time from the Third Doctor? It opens a lot of possibilities if that's where they take it. And I think he kind of left that wide open for maybe himself or another writer can say, well, this established here, things came back to life. Now I'm going to reintroduce this old villain or this old companion.
You know what I was thinking the whole time? I was like, oh, cool. Thanos moment. Everybody's dust. Oh, great. There we go. I see what they're doing. Everybody's turning to dust. How are they going to bring them back? Are they going to assemble and defeat this guy? So that's where I went.
So true. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool how they, again, for a new iteration of Doctor Who, are removing some of the constraints. So dealing with some of the critiques that we had in our most previous iteration of the Doctor and some of the storylines there, the whole flux stuff. But it also, so part of the challenge of Doctor Who is I mean, how do you keep this thing going for a really long time with this universe where you've given yourself so many guardrails and constraints over time? So what do you do that's new? Well, one of the creative things about this season was opening up the world to the as we talked about, like science fiction, but also fantasy fiction, and so you open that up. So that gives you so many more storylines. Well, another way to do it is to say, we've actually revised the previous storylines. And so we can kind of play with some things that were based on the writing dead to us before. So I think that was clever. And you need something, you need that kind of thing every now and then to help the story move forward.
Yeah, I do think largely this season was a corrective season, more or less. But
As was needed.
yes, two things. One, Sutek had nothing to do with what Doctor did at the edge of the universe. So I don't think he can be part of the same pantheon of gods as Maestro and all them. So I think we still have more gods to come. I don't think he was the real last baddie.
Yeah.
I also, here's the thing I've been most curious about. There's 2 TARDISes. It was duplicated. Is there another Sutek?
There are 3 TARDISes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
gosh,
right.
yeah. For the human Doctor and Rose.
Ooh.
Well, no, so the TARDIS bigenerated when the Doctor bigenerated. So the
Yes.
David Tennant who's hanging out with
The nobles.
Donna has a TARDIS, right?
Mhm.
So, and you have this memory TARDIS that is hanging out as well, right? I mean, that was never really.
They didn't finish that storyline, yeah.
No, they did not. So you've got these TARDI out there, and so I don't know exactly what we do with that, and because we have them existing, I mean, the memory TARDIS is a different thing, but the bi-generated TARDIS, is there a version of Sutek that is still connected to that TARDIS? Huge question mark there. I thought what they were going to do with Sutek was have him come in at the end of time, because that's what the 4th Doctor did, sent him down the time tunnel toward the end. And so it made sense that that's where the doorway was. Well, that wasn't the case. And so, yeah, I do think we're going to see more. The woman who, the mysterious woman who we see at the end, who we see having a chat with Ruby's grandmother, says, I had so many plans. So this person was also turned to dust, right? But before she got turned to dust, she said she has so many plans. Well, she's back, and there's some other plans.
Sure. And she knows who the Doctor is, and she knows what a TARDIS is.
Yeah. And there's something going on. What I don't know is on her suitcase, it had Penzance on there. So I don't know what. I keep on thinking, is there some kind of Doctor Who hook with the Pirates of Penzance or something? But I don't know what that clue was meant to tell us.
Man. But to get us back on track, Will, how do you feel like they did handling like this whole idea of the bad guy is death and Doctor represents life? And in the end, death created life and life had to kill death.
I'm a part of a religion that deals a lot with life and death and resurrection. So I was playing around. I was like, let's bat around these concepts and ideas a little bit. Is everything right down the road of like a Christian understanding of life and death? Not necessarily, but if you're going to philosophize around the meaning of life and death and life and all those things, I'm all for it. So I like that aspect of it, and the dust and who's coming back. And I was like, there wasn't a sense of like, oh, this is the end of Doctor Who. This guy's going to win. I like this guy. Yeah. People love this guy. They're going to come back. So I was like, how are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? So I love the nostalgia TARDIS and the Easter eggs within there, like past Doctor Who's and what they're holding on to in the strings. I like that. And I'll also even say that I don't know if Christian likes this, or even Matthew, but like who Ruby's mom is. I love that. And because
I still don't know who her mom is.
yeah,
Ooh.
I think because of like the Christian story of Jesus was an ordinary dude from a town that his disciples like nothing good can come from there. It didn't like come in, the Messiah didn't come in like wearing a crown of gold, but like a simple carpenter, ordinary thing.
Yeah.
Life was generated. The author of life came in as unassuming and humble. And so to have something inordinary or just ordinary, and then like talk about this kind of thing about significance and the significance they place upon it, like it makes it a little relativistic. But I think I kind of see what they're doing there. I think there's inherent value to stuff no matter what we put our own judgments on it. But I think I loved how they were playing around with that I could see where that was a bait and switch and frustrate people. It was like, this is gonna be this real big important person, then we're like, sorry. But the fact that ordinary life, because life is ordinary, like most of the time it's not on a TARDIS going from one era to another. You're going to work, you're getting the same foods that you like every day, you're waking up having coffee, and you know what you're going to put in your coffee every single morning. Like there's ordinary aspect of life. And that,
Why are you spying on me?
I know exactly, because I know, Matthew, our common ground is we both know what we're going to put in our coffee tomorrow morning. So I think I like that aspect. I was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad that they wrote it that way, because it was a little bit, unexpected. And also I can relate to that in terms of how I understand this rabbi from Nazareth to be.
Right. And we don't need to have companions every single time that are so otherworldly for some reason that
Right.
they're
I mean,
the reason why.
Yeah. We've already had Clara.
We've done that. We've had Clara. Donna became that in a way. We've just Rose became that in a way. So we've got so much of that already. But every doctor in the modern era of Doctor Who has had a moment where they talked about how special regular, ordinary people are. Mm-hmm. And this was another one of those moments. And so I do think that's a through line across modern Who, and it's a really important one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was sorry, Christian. That was the one thing. So it's actually part of why the only thing I am aggravated at is that I just don't think that's going to end up being her real mom. And if it is, there's going to be all kinds of caveats that we're going to find out 2 seasons from now. Like, there's just too many things that aren't clear for me to think that Russell T Davies just missed stuff. And I'm like, nope. It's gonna be something else, and it's gonna get revealed seasons later. And I feel like it's gonna cheapen that message, and I like that message. So that's the only thing that I'm like, I don't like that, because I don't think that that's actually gonna be the case 2 seasons from now when he pulls a Rose Tyler and he's like, oh, you thought she was gone, but here she is again. But I like that message. And it harkens back to, ironically, one of my favorite Doctor Who moments and one of my favorite Christmas specials is from Matt Smith, my second to least favorite Doctor, where the guy goes, he's asking, who is that? And he's pointing at the girl that's in the fridge or the freezer or whatever. And he goes, oh, no one important. And the Doctor's just, that's amazing. I've never met someone who's not important before. I love that moment. I'm like, that is Doctor Who. And so I do like that through line.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't get cheapened later.
Oh, I would go ahead, Christian.
With everyone, I would agree if we had not started off with the mystery of who she is, who her mother is. If you don't ask those questions as much as you're asking them, then if she's just an ordinary person, well, yeah, that's fine. But then you build up a whole season where the maestro is like, there's something different about you. What's this song inside of you? There's something that's messed up. So if this is a misdirect, they got me good. I will admit full fault a year from now, whenever it releases.
2.
2, whatever. So hold me to that when that happens. But if this is exactly as stated and her mom is just just a 15-year-old who was in a relationship with another 15-year-old, wasn't ready for the responsibility, gave the baby away, just happened to be wearing this cloak, just happened to be pointing menacingly in a direction that we turn as just as her being a large giant ham would be like, I want you to name my daughter that. And that's why I pointed at the street sign, not at the TARDIS, not at the doctor, not at the Sutek or anything else that she saw. No. It's because I want you to name her Ruby after the road. And that ruins and kills credulity to me. It's Rey all over again. Not that I think that Ruby is Rey, because Ruby is a good, well-written character. Rey, the whole thing was the mystery box. Who is she? Where did she come from? And the answer was she was nobody. Then the answer was actually she's a secret Palpatine. And that's what happens when you don't have writers all working on the same script. So I liked the reveal as Rey as a nobody. We did talk about that.
That was cool.
Because it worked within what was being made. But then we get to Ruby. It is specifically stated several times. It was never stated about Rey. You must come from a lineage of someone else, or there's a song in your heart that's just different than everyone else. From an eldritch being, the snow happening all the time.
That's the one thing that kills me.
That was confusing for me. I will agree with that.
I don't like it. But once again, if I am wrong and I am being debated on this one, I will 100% say I'm wrong.
On air.
Yes, on air.
Yeah.
I think I'm close. I'm close to Christian on this big surprise. Like theologically and philosophically and all of that part of me loves the messaging that she's just an ordinary girl with an ordinary mom from an ordinary place. And that is what truly makes the universe special, is that it is just made up of ordinary people with ordinary lives. We can't all be Time Lords and gods and, whatever. I love that. But as a sci-fi fan and a Whovian and all of that, I wanted Ruby to be her own mom, or for her to be some kind of whatever, some weird timey-wimey thing, because it's Doctor Who.
Well, don't worry, she will be.
Yeah, but so yes, and I'm not going to say it, but yes, and so I'm with you. It was not as clear as it needed to be. It got wrapped up really, really quickly. What I think they were trying to do was to talk about, so this is again fantasy, it's about magic here, friends. What they were trying to do is talk about the magic of memory in this last episode and what life memory allows, what possibilities memory allows. Now, I think that was interesting. Was it done effectively? Clearly not as effectively as they wanted it to be. But I think that's what they were trying to do, is say there is a power at work here that is really simple, but at certain point, and the doctor says this in a speech, at certain moments, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was essentially that in certain moments, there's just so much power in that thought, in that memory, that it creates new possibilities that are greater than the gods and greater than the Time Lords. And so it was poetic, but and
love that part.
Some of us, but it was poetic. And maybe it didn't land as effectively as they wanted, but I think if they allow that poetry to stand, I actually hope they do allow that poetry to stand.
Yeah. Some of that's good. I think the thing that's weird to me, and why this is part of why I don't believe it. Not only is there stuff that just doesn't wrap up, and I know Russell T Davies has a tendency to just bring stuff back multiple seasons later. It's also that, and this is funny, part of why I don't like Stephen Moffat. Because Moffat had this thing of he's going to build up this huge twist, and at the end, the twist was another twist, and then you follow that new twist, and then that you follow. Oh, and that twist it ends with another twist, and then it never actually gets wrapped up, and it's just infuriating. And Russell T Davies kind of does the opposite. He downplays, and then the twist at the end, and you're like, oh wait, that was all connected. What? And that's where Ruby felt really out of place. Everything else was downplayed. It's like, oh, hey, there's someone who just keeps showing up. And, it was kind of like whatever. And that turned out to be the big twist. But Ruby was really hyped up. And that's not something Russell T Davies does very often, which is where I'm like, I don't buy that this is it. But I do like the message. So I'm not trying to like crap all over it. I'm just kind of like, I don't buy it. So I don't want to have a firm opinion yet.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with the message of The Ordinary. It's fantastic. God generally works through ordinary means. We may chase gifts and miracles and whatever, but the fact of the matter is God is at work in all of the mundane and the ordinary and the regular people doing regular things. I love that. Theologically and philosophically, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just after all the buildup of who is she and she can make it snow and like all this, whatever. Yeah. No.
All right. Yeah.
There you have it.
There you go. And again, I mean, the power of what they were trying to say, they just perhaps did not deliver effectively. I will also say that we don't know who her dad is. That's a mystery yet to be to unfold. Because he was mentioned. So there are all these little. So what we should learn from the Tenet episodes is a line that you might think is a throwaway line could be a whole series, right? Oh, hey, you know what? I introduced a superstition at the edge of time or edge of the universe. That's these whole eight episodes were, kind of a build onto that. So let's just see, which threads they pull on for this next season.
I like that. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything else to add, I think it's time that we wrap this one up. We got a little bit over, but we expected to, so it's fine. And with our wrap up, one thing we do for our What's News episodes, it's a little bit different than what we do on our other episodes. Instead of doing a recommendation that's not related, if you had to pick any of the things mentioned, including the lightning round, and to recommend to people who haven't seen it, what would you do? Of everything we talked about, what one thing would you recommend? I'll go first. Super easy. Doctor Who. I mean, it's just, I love Doctor Who. So I couldn't say anything else. Christian, what about you?
It's hard to not say Doctor Who, because as much as I was not big on certain parts of the finale, I still liked what they were doing for the most part. I want to see more. I want to see more of 15. I mean, did Ruby leave at the end? Is she not going to be the companion next season? It could go either way. Doctor Who, go watch it. And if that's not my answer, it's going to be Ultraman Rising. You don't need to know Ultraman, just go watch it.
All right, Matt, what about you? If you had to pick any of the things we talked about.
Oh gosh, what not
You did technically mention Digimon.
I did. Yeah. So that's a good one. That's fantastic. I mean, it's only available in subbed, but most of us don't care about that. But the new Digimon so far has been fantastic. I love the concept, and it doesn't have any of the 90s goofiness. It's been pretty straight so far.
Mm-hmm. All right, Justin, bring us home. Of all the things we talked about, what would you say?
Gosh, well, I mean, it's hard not to say Doctor Who. It really is. But because
Yeah.
Will is not here, I'm going to say it for him. My Adventures with Superman is a fun, lighthearted show that that isn't that bad, particularly in this season, the second season.
All right. I like it. I like it. Well, guys, that's bringing us to the end here. We do want to go ahead and let you know that if you can, we'd really appreciate if you like and subscribe on YouTube, or if you're on a laptop, go to podchaser.com, leave a rating and review there. That helps us a lot. You're not on lots of phone, listen to podcasts. Helps. Anything helps. The algorithm thinks we're important, and we appreciate that, whether we're important or not. The things that they think we're important. That's what's important. Well, guys, also big thanks to Trip Fuller for supporting the show. Remember, you can always support our show on Patreon, Captivate, or Apple Podcasts. So be like Trip, because we can't do the show without people like him. And of course, we need you to do one very important thing for all of us here. Remember that we're all a chosen people, even the ordinary, a geekdom of priests.